We're moving to West Virginia ballot measures. West Virginia voters do not have the right to place their own initiatives on the ballot to pass and repeal state laws and amend the West Virginia Constitution on their own. Voters only have the power to ratify into the West Virginia Constitution what the legislature puts before them through what's called a legislative referred constitutional amendment, aka state legislator initiative. West Virginia Amendment 1, no court authority over impeachment measure. A yes vote supported amending the state constitution to say that no state court has authority over impeachment proceedings by the state legislature and that no court can review any impeachment judgments made by the state. This measure failed by 57.81%. What would the amendment have changed about impeachment in West Virginia? The good grief, can't talk tonight. The measure would have amendment Article 4 of the West Virginia Constitution to add that no state court has jurisdiction to intervene in impeachment proceedings of the West Virginia House of Delegates or the state Senate. The amendment also prohibits any state court from reviewing any impeachment judgment made by the state Senate. As of 2022, the state constitution did not state a role for the state judiciary to participate or review impeachment proceedings apart from the Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court presiding over those proceedings. Okay, who supported this measure? State Delegate Pat McGeehan. The resolution has nothing to do with violating the separation of powers. It has everything to do with restoring the separation of powers. We need to restore our own rightful powers as a legislative branch because since the 2018 Workman decision, the legislative branch has essentially been reduced to a social club. The impeachment powers are the last line of defense that we have in the state constitution. We have to pass this and ensure that we take our place again to be able to enforce this kind of power and the threat of it. Who opposed it? State Delegate Barbara. What this would do would say that there's no constitutional restraint whatsoever on impeachment, that the separation of powers is not relevant. I think that we all need to think about what this means for the future, that any hyperpartisan and frivolous impeachment would be a-okay. Interesting. Amendment 2. Authorize tax exemptions for vehicles and personal property used for business measure. A yes vote supported amending the West Virginia Constitution to authorize the state legislature to exempt personal property, machinery, equipment, and inventory used for business activity and personal motor vehicle property tax from ad valorem property taxes. This measure failed by 64.51%. Struck out 2 in a row. Heard this part? How would the amendment have changed taxes on tangible personal property? So the measure would have amended Article 5 of the West Virginia Constitution to exempt tangible personal property used for business activity and personal property tax on motor vehicles from ad valorem property taxes. As of 2022, the state constitution exempted property used for educational, literary, scientific, religious, or charitable purposes. All cemeteries, public property, the personal property, including livestock, employed exclusively in agriculture as above defined, and products of agriculture as so defined, while owned by the producers from taxation. Who supported this? The Republican Party. As you can see, the Republican Party supported that. One of the arguments was the Speaker, Representative Roger Hanshaw, told us that in the event HJR3 passes, subsequent legislation will define how those taxes will be handled and welcomes our active participation. We look forward to that and will certainly bring plenty of ideas. Who opposed it? The governor, who's also a Republican, Governor Jim Justice, opposed it. Interesting. Government entities that opposed it: Lewis County Commission. One of the organizations was the County Commissioners Association of West Virginia. Note here from Roger Meadows: how much revenue is generated from taxes on tangible personal property in the state? In 2018, revenue from TPP taxes generated $523.9 million. Of that revenue, 65.3% was allocated to schools, 27.2% was allocated to counties, 7.1% was allocated to municipalities, and 0.4% was allocated to municipalities. Roger's commentary here: the above is probably why they opposed it. Although I'm confused about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, I thought Trump ended that. Yeah, that's interesting. And amendment number 3, incorporation of religious denominations and churches measure. A yes vote supported amending West Virginia Constitution to authorize the state legislature to pass laws to incorporate churches and religious denominations. This measure also failed by 54.55%. So West Virginia, they were striking out. They were striking out. But that failed. What would the amendment have changed? The amendment would have amended Article 6 of the state constitution to remove the prohibition on incorporating religious denominations and churches and authorize the state legislature to provide for the incorporation of churches or religious denominations by law. Interesting. And commentary here from Roger: Sabby, they wanted a corporate charter to operate like a business. LOL, these people are something. I wonder if this would have made them ineligible for tax exemption through a 501c3. The separation between church and state is blurred here. And amendment number 4, legislative approval of the State Board of Education rules measure. A yes vote supported requiring the State Board of Education to submit its rules or policies to the legislature to approve, amend, or repeal. This measure also failed by 57.86%. So who supported this? The Senate Education Committee Chair, Patricia Rucker. So Republicans supported this. One of the arguments was the laws and rules under which we have to live in a free society must be crafted ultimately by people who are accountable to the citizens of our state through our elections, and our state board of education is not. Who opposed it? Superintendent of Schools, of course, Clayton Birch, who is nonpartisan, and the State Board of Education President Miller Hall. Government entities that opposed it: West Virginia Board of Education. One of the arguments was, look at us. We can't agree on a lot, but when we do agree, sometimes it changes from year to year. What's that going to do to public education in the state? There was no campaign finance money. There was no campaign finance money spent in order to support or oppose that measure. Note here from Roger: Sabby, this honestly looks like micromanaging from the state government. West Virginia's constitution already gives the State Board of Education the authority to use their discretion when it comes to accepting or rejecting the rules around education. Sounds like what DeSantis did in Florida. Not to mention the state legislature changes every 2 years in elections. No wonder voters rejected this. And that is West Virginia.